Howdy folks, welcome to 20th Century Adventures. I'm Nathan Logsdon, and today we're going to look at some of the Sportsman's boots and other footwear that is sold on our website, logsdonandco.com. So what we want to look at today, the Sportsman's boots have been very popular. We've had several years now that they've been out and had a chance to get feedback and also put them through our own trials and tests. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you the original pair. I know I've said this many times. These are very dusty. I should have cleaned them up. But these are the original boots, circa about 1918, that we used in the design of this. So you can see we're really close on our design. A lot of the shaping, the part up the back here, everything, we've tried to copy this as accurately as possible. Now, these boots were made with an oil tan leather, and ours are not. That was mainly a cost issue, but there has been enough interest over the years that we are now looking at possibly doing a deluxe version that will be made with oil tan leather. Now, they will be significantly more expensive because of that higher quality material, but those boots will certainly last 100 years just like these. So that's kind of what we're gearing towards. I don't know how soon that's going to happen, but it is in the process. So some of the features that we tried to replicate here, it's got the eyelets coming about halfway up and then switches to speed laces. It's got the buckle over strap to cover the ties to keep them from coming untied on the brush and things like that. That's sewn down exactly the same way. And some folks have criticized the fineness of the stitches, how close together the stitches are on our boots. The ones on the original boots are actually closer. So the argument that that's going to tear out because the stitches are too close together, well, here's 100, almost 120 years or 110 years worth of boot that is proving you wrong. So the tight, fine stitches are not an issue. In fact, we could go even closer, but the machines just won't do it that we've got to work with. So one of the other things we did, and this happened in the second run, we did a first initial run that was sort of a trial run, a prototype, just getting them out there, and then we fine-tuned it in the second version, and then we've been reproducing that version ever since. But we added this band at the top here. It's a really fine, thin leather in black on top of that brown boot, and it really sets it off. It's hard to see now because it's so aged, but we added that to the second version, and it really made them pop, made them look a lot nicer. So that's, now the original has nickel hardware on it. Ours have an aged brass. On the deluxe version, we're trying to find nickel. We may end up having to go with shiny brass. Anyway, that's the original boot that we copied these from. And you can see it's, in this one that's got the laces out, you can see that tongue works exactly the same way, same shape exactly as what's on the ones that we reproduced. So, there's the original. Now this was version 2, or version 1 rather. This was the initial run, and these are filthy as well. There's a whole point to this. Now the originals, I just didn't take the time. They're packed away, wrapped in paper, and they're just dirty and old, dusty. But on my reproductions that I use personally, I have deliberately avoided doing anything to them. I wanted to, of course we recommend that you clean them and oil them after every single use. These are solid leather shoes. That's the kind of attention they need. Now, I have deliberately not done that because I wanted to see just how far I could push absolute abuse before I start having problems. And that's why we're doing this video, because I've started to have problems. But I'll get into that. So, first version came out really nice, really close to what we wanted. You notice it does not have the black band at the top. It doesn't have a roller buckle, which the version 2 didn't either, but the deluxe version will. Initially, we had some issues with the eyelets popping out. We've resolved that. We're using heavier duty eyelets that are backed on the backside as well. So the quality is better on version 2 as far as the hardware and stuff. They also didn't finish the edges of the leather on the first run. But otherwise, they're a solid boot. They're a comfortable boot. They've held up remarkably well. These have been on tours and camps, and they've done a lot of stuff. Now, when the second version came out, I quit wearing these. I put them away, and I started wearing the new version because that's really the one that I wanted to test. So the new version has been going through a trial of abuse for almost 2 years now. So I just, like I said, I wanted to see how far I could go before I had to do something. So this is the second version, and these are really, really filthy. There's dirt on them. Do not let your boots get like this. This was intentional because I wanted to see what would happen if somebody didn't take care of their boots and how they would look down the road and how they would hold up if they had no positive treatment at all. If you do positive treatment to your boots, they will last you forever. They will last and last and last. Just regular maintenance. That's all it takes. It's just like your car. You got to change the oil in your car. Same thing with your true leather boots. You've got to maintain them and take care of them. So these have been, again, on car tours, on camping trips. They've done a lot of hunting. I can't even tell you how many miles I've done in this. And I have walked on every kind of terrain you can imagine. Solid rocks, gravel, pavement, grass, mud, wading through creeks, forest floors, whatever. I've been through it all in these boots in the past 2 years. And really, they've held up remarkably well. Far better than I expected. I really expected that a year in with this kind of negligence, that they would be falling apart. And they're not. So we haven't had any issues with eyelets on the second version. These eyelets have held up really well. Some of the speed laces, because it's stamped out of sheet brass, those they're a little soft. If you smack your leg real hard on a tree log or something, you can bend those down enough that the lace doesn't come out easily, and you've got to get something in there and pry them back up. So that's the only thing. That and replacing the laces are the only things that I have done to maintain these in the 2 years that I've been using them. I have not put any sort of oil treatment on them. I have not cleaned them other than scraping mud off with a stick. I have kept them from staying wet. I've allowed them to dry out. I have not done overly abusive things like putting them next to a fire to dry. That is terrible for them, and that will cook your boots and they will fall apart. Because I knew that would definitely destroy them, I didn't do that. But I haven't taken any extra precautions or any extra actual maintenance. So the only complaints that I have at this point is because when you store these boots, after you take them off, you put them away, you should stuff the inside of them with something. This one is stuffed with paper. These here, I just use some of the kids' cereal boxes, fold them over, stuff them in there. What you don't want, and this is what I did, you don't want to leave them unstuffed where they lay over like this. If they are laid in storage, folded over like this, what's going to happen is it's going to break down this back ridge, and eventually it's going to create a ripple that will rub against the back of your heel and create a blister in no time, which is what's happened with my second run ones. My first run ones, I didn't get to that point. But the last time that I wore these second version boots, they were rubbing me right here, and you can see where it's creased right here. All that is creased really badly. Not as bad on this side, but definitely this one. And it's from them laying flopped over like that. That's how I've stored them for 2 years, because I figure stuffing the boots at the end of an event is something that people don't always think about doing or don't always want to do. And so to me, that seemed like a responsibly irresponsible thing to do. That's the sort of thing that would be a common issue people would have. I was trying to say, what would the ordinary person who doesn't know about leather boots or who doesn't care to keep up their leather boots, what's their experience going to be? And so they have only just now become unwearable. Because like I said, the last time I wore them for about an hour and already had a blister coming up. So that's what we're going to try to deal with today. And then the other thing that has happened is the tongue on this buckle broke off. I don't know where it is. It's gone. It's lost in the woods somewhere between here and forever. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to take a wire and make a new tongue for that buckle, so we can put that back together and it'll function properly again. So that's just a matter of taking some decent gauge wire, something that's about the gauge of the original tongue on here, whatever's closest we can find, and then that's going to be wrapped around the center of the buckle. Use a pair of pliers, crimp that down so that it can not be too tight. Don't want to not be able to move, but you want to be able to move around there, and just put a new tongue back on that other buckle. So since I'm doing all this, I might as well do that too. But that's the only issues that I've had, is that buckle, the tongue broke off of that one buckle, and now they're bothering my heel. Now, if they're brand new and they're bothering your heel, you might check your lacing. If it is, you want it to be fairly tight in the middle region, but if it's too tight at the top, that can prevent the boot from being able to move a little bit at the top. Also, make sure they're pulled up all the way, as high as they can go, so that you're not, if this is the only part that's moving, you see, then that's going to push that boot down and cause more crease there. So check your lacing first, and then this is the solution if you've worn them for a while and it's like, man, these have been great, but now all of a sudden they're hurting me. Well, this may be why. So something to look into. So anyway, soles of these, now these are all muddy, but the soles have held up really well. I didn't stamp these. If you've bought boots from me, you know it's got a Compass Rose stamp here. These were my personal pair. I pulled them out of the box and threw them on my feet and started running with them. So they never did get the stamp. But the leather there is still light colored. So that has, I mean, it's all held up really well. There's no wear down to the stitching anywhere. The stitching is not getting worn. Maybe just a hair on the toe here. Because I don't walk for it. No, it's not. It's below the stitching is all below the leather there. We've got some heel cupping going on. That's because this gets wet. Even on a dry day, the ground is damp. The heel is going to get the most wet. And so that leather gets soaked, and then it dries out, and then it gets soaked again, it dries out some more. Each time it pushes the oils out of the leather. So if you don't oil the heels, you're going to start getting this shrinkage going on, and it's going to cup, it's going to pull away like it's doing here. This is, I can get my thumbnail in that bottom layer because it's pulling away because it hasn't had oil. Now, if I had taken care of these and treated them after every time I used them, then it wouldn't be doing that. So that's something to keep in mind too. So anyway, now we've got a big old mess. I've got all this dirt on my table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this dirt. I'm going to clean these with a damp rag. I'm just going to get a rag wet, wring it out, and I'm going to scrub all this mud off, and then we're going to start our process. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, we're back. So I cleaned these boots really well. Gave them a good scrubbing. Just a little bit of dampness still, but mostly it's drying out now. Really, they're in excellent shape. It's amazing with as much abuse as they've had. It's amazing what condition they're actually in. So, what we're going to do is, this is the process you should do every time that you take your boots off, basically. Where every time you come back from a weekend event or a hunt or something like that. So you can use whatever you want as long as it's natural. We don't want to put petroleum products on our leather footwear because it'll break down the leather. Ideally, I like to use the Hubbard shoe grease. This has got beeswax in it, which helps. It's also got pine tar. Beeswax and pine tar both are naturally antiseptic. When you're walking on the ground, you're picking up organisms, you're grinding them into the leather, and those organisms that are in the ground are intended to break down organic materials. So what are they doing? They're breaking down the organic materials in your natural boots. So by using something that's got the pine tar in it, or beeswax, either one or both preferably, that's going to really help with killing off those organisms and protecting the leather longer. I don't know. I think Snow Seal does have beeswax. I don't think it has pine tar. I'm not certain. I don't remember now to be sure. But Snow Seal is a all-natural product, so you can use that as well. Either one of those products would be fine. You want something a little bit thicker than just plain old mink oil or neat's foot oil. You want something that's got some structure to it. That beeswax in there makes it thicker, makes it hold on to the surface better, keeps it from melting in warmer temperatures. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rub this compound into our boots and really work it in, especially along the heels and the edges of your sole. You really want to get it into those layers where this dirt and microorganisms get ground into it. And yes, you do want to do the sole as well, because you want to nourish that leather as well. This will not make it slick. It will be slick if you put them on right away and try to walk on a tile floor or something with them. Yes, that would be slick. But if you give this a little bit of time, hour or two, for it to soak in, you won't have an issue. These bottom surfaces do not have an actual finish on them, and so they'll just suck up the oil real fast, as opposed to a polished outer, body of the shoe. So this will not hurt. You won't slip and fall. But what it will do is it nourishes that leather, keeps it pliable, helps keep it more waterproof. Yes, they can take a lot of abuse. And if you're okay with buying a new pair of boots every other year or every 2 years, just because you don't want to oil them up, by all means, I'm happy to sell them to you. But if you'd like a pair of boots that will last you your lifetime, you have to take care of them. And this is how it's done. And it's really not that big of a deal. The worst part about it is you have to take the laces out and put the laces back in. If it wasn't for that, that's the most time-consuming part of the whole thing, I think. And I'm really slopping this on there. It helps also if you get them a little bit warm. I'm actually sitting next to my wood stove in my living room, and being in that warm environment really helps the oils soak in a little bit better. So put it on as thick as you possibly can. Get it good and saturated. The more, if I had done this over and over, it wouldn't be sucking up as much oil as it is. And I had some scuffs on the toes. I should have showed that, and they're already gone just with one little swipe of the compound. So this makes them look like new all over again. But if I had kept up with this after 2 years, as much as I use them, these boots probably would already have more of the characteristic of oil tan leather to begin with, because they would have so much of this impregnated in them.
Discharge in the world. 7, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles a day. 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boots, 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 moving up and down again. A small discharge in the world. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boots, 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 moving up and down again. Men, then go mad with watching them, and there's no discharge in the war. There's no discharge.
Okay, so that's the process. That's what we're going to do with both of them. Now I am going to take a moment to fix this. I got a piece of wire here. It's fairly heavy gauge. It's actually the shaft from one of these sponges that I use, applicators that I use for leather, for dyeing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bend in that.
Try to think of something different. Oh my God, keep me from going lunatic. Boots, 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 moving up and down again. A small discharge in the wool. Oh, count.
Cut that off. All right. Now we've fixed the buckle. It's not perfect. It's not exactly the same material, but it'll do for now until we find something better. All right, so I'll polish this one up, put the laces back in, and we'll see how they do. So while we're at it, we're going to give the good greasing to these guys as well. This is the working man's boot from Logsdon & Co. It is really the best, hands down, the best historic shoe I've ever worn. And I've done this in all different time periods for 25 years plus. These are the most comfortable shoes as far as historic shoes I've ever worn. They're actually second only to my expensive work boots, my Ariat work boots that I love. These would be my second most comfortable shoes that I own. And they're all leather. So these have had the same abuse, and these I'm pushing 3 years, I think, on these. So these have had the ringer run through them as well, just like the other ones, and they have held up remarkably well. There's really nothing wrong with them. The only issue that I'm having is I'm starting to get some cupping on the heel, again, from it not being treated. These did get an initial treatment when they were brand new, and you can reference the video on finishing your Logsdon & Co. shoes. That video shows the process that I did, and that's the only thing that's been done to these in 3 years. So really quite impressive, almost 3 years. Quite impressive how well they've held up, and they're still very, very comfortable. So I'm really, really tickled with these shoes. So they're going to get a good coat of grease, probably work on rubbing the nap back down on them again, and that's what I'm going to do with these. This is great to do in the wintertime, or especially early spring, late winter, early spring, when there's nothing to hunt, and it's too unpleasant and muddy and cold and wet to go out and do any camping. Now's the time to sit down and take care of your footwear and give it a once-over and repair anything that's wrong with it, and get it all thoroughly greased up, maybe even grease it several times so it has time to soak in. Keep it by the wood stove so that it has time to really soak all that oil up. And then they'll be so much better for you. The thing is, notice how much better condition these are. And and they're still comfortable. And these the only difference is that these did get treated with the grease one time. The tall boots didn't get any. So that's a testament to the Hubert shoe grease and how well it does even long term. Just simply having that one coating on the brand new pair made these last so much longer than they should have. You know, I've had other pairs of historical shoes that I didn't do anything to when I was younger and didn't know any better. And they would last one season, and that was it. They were done. So good shoes and good product makes all the difference in the world on these things lasting. So we're going to get these greased up. We're going to finish greasing up those and show you the final product here. In the meantime, I want to show you how you can take, if you've got a pair of the first generation Sportsman boots, if you were one of those that bought into the first run, there was a special discount deal. They were dirt cheap to get in on it. In the long run, you know, people have had some issues with the hardware. We tried to rectify that as much as possible. And we actually changed manufacturers from this boot to the second run just to get the quality issues out of the way. So a lot of things have happened since this boot was made. But if you still have a pair of these boots, they're not bad boots. The leather is still good quality. Cosmetically, they're not as beautiful, and they may end up needing their eyelets replaced. It's only been really the lower eyelets. I don't think there's been much issue with the big ones. Here you can see it. These are a little thinner even than the other ones, but you can see where one of these is squished. And that's what happens to them, is they get squished over, and you can pull them back out. I need a tool. No, I got it. You can pull them back out, and they'll be okay. But like I said, for the deluxe version, the Gen 3, if you will, which will actually be a separate product entirely, that one we're hoping to have a heavier quality eyelet or speed lace on it. But I don't know. It's a matter of what's available. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try and make these look better. So if you've got a pair of these and you want them to look better, here's how you do it. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get through whatever finish and waxes and oils are on it. So you need a clean surface to work with. Now I've already removed all the dirt and grime and dust off of these. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a rag. And there's a variety of things you can use. All we're doing is taking the surface layer off. So you can use, ideally the best thing to use is the Fibings leather stripper. And it's a product that is designed for stripping the finish off of leather. Depending on whether you've added something to your boots or not, if you've put a layer of wax or stuff like that on it, or any other finishes, you may need to go that route. If you haven't treated them with anything except maybe the Huber's shoe grease, you can just use rubbing alcohol or denatured alcohol and strip that top layer. All you're doing is just breaking down the factory finish. Alcohol can be hard on some leathers, so it's best to test it on, before you do any projects with the alcohol. Test it in an inconspicuous area first if it's something you're not sure about. In this case, I know that the alcohol is not going to damage this leather. It's just taking off the surface finish.
Once there was one big pair of boots
and one little pair of shoes.
Okay, so I don't know if it comes through the camera there or not, but what this has done is it has given it a very dull finish, and it's a little bit tacky. So that's what you want. That means that you've broken down that outer surface varnish. So what we're going to do now is we're going to over dye these. Now, you can go darker. You can't really go lighter once it's already, whatever color it already is, you have to go darker than that. Black is certainly a great option for over dyeing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a little bit of my black dye on this applicator. This dye is a little thick, but it should do a good job as long as we have enough. All right, and we're just going to start right along the bottom. Make sure you've got your working surface area covered if you don't want to get dye on it, because this will get dye on it. Work it down into all your edges and corners, and gaps. It's actually, I should have thought about this. It's best to wear gloves when you're doing this. Otherwise, your hands will be black.
Size of the boot was number 9.
But the shoes were only.
Now, as we do this, you will see that we're covering that cut edge with dye. That alone is going to make these boots look a heck of a lot better.
One pair of boots off one pair of shoes had seen such a charming photo.
He made up his mind, his heart, his mind. He was a healing toto.
Healing toto. One pair of boots
And one pair of shoes
were
were
close
close
to each
just
other.
the same.
He tried to squeeze her under the tree.
But she was a bit strictly.
Now would you have thought that she'd refuse if you had been in the boots' shoes?
One pair of shoes turned her toes up so and pulled quite a long, long span.
On me, cried the boots, it's patent. Kid, that you don't admire my stance.
Ooh! One pair of shoes flushed up to her top. The boots grew a bit more daring.
He cried, though I'm black and the polish I lack, I love you beyond repairing. One pair of boots,
And one pair of shoes
soon off to the church they went.
there they got hitched up,
Tightly and stitched up,
quite to their soul's content.
and all about.
So once you have them dyed the way you want them, the next step is to wipe it all down real good. This kind of gets the surface bits off where there's anything that might have pooled or is still on there. Plus it gets it off of your hardware. This is why we put down paper, folks. I've actually got several layers of newspaper underneath of this. Do this so that the women that you live with don't get upset. My wife would be very angry if I spilled dye on this table. So, keep the peace at home. Use paper. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit this with some leather conditioner. I'm using Piping's leather balm. You can use anything similar, just a good leather conditioner is what you want. That's because there's alcohol in the dye, and of course we used alcohol to strip it, so we've taken a lot of moisture out of these boots. A lot of the oils have been stripped now, so we need to give it something back. So you just work this in very, very liberally. Lots of conditioner. Just keep going until it soaks it up.
You did wish they were in the boots and shoes. After a good many years had passed, the boot still adorned his wife.
The martyrs soon got quite worn out with the cares of married life.
Now when the boots walk out with the shoes, it's different altogether.
Behind him you'll see a loud memory.
All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to let that just kind of soak up a little bit. It's definitely damp now from all the leather balm. So we'll let that soak, and then I will go ahead and do a coat of the Hubert's shoe grease or the Snow Seal to kind of give these a final finish. If I wanted to, I could really hit it with some black shoe polish and shine them up. I'm a hunter, so I don't want things shiny. You don't want glossy in the woods. So I'm going to leave them kind of dull and matte. But if you were, say, an automobilist or a motorcycle guy, you might want to polish these up and make them shiny. So that's just an extra step you can do. I don't want to do it because I don't want that look. But that's how you do it. I'm going to put some black laces on these. I think that'll make them look real nice. And I'm pretty excited with how they turned out. I can't wait. So I'm going to finish up the other here and we'll get to it. Okay, folks. I was going to go ahead and finish these and do the final scene that way. But the difference is so striking on these. I really wanted to show the before and after. So with each of these, I've got one shoe or boot that has not been touched, and the other ones have. So I'm going to run through these real quick just so you can see. So here's our Gen 2 Sportsman boot. This is the way it was aside from cleaning. So it's had the mud kicked off it and wiped down and all that, but it's still stiff. It hasn't had any grease or anything done to it yet. This is the reworked version. This is what you should do every time you come back from an event. So anytime that you go hunting or you go camping or you go to an event or something like that, you get home, you need to take these boots, clean all the mud off, put the oil on them, and stuff the insides. So this is after that work is done. Now I've still got a little bit of shoe grease that hasn't quite soaked in yet, but it's almost there. There's a few shiny spots still, but it'll all be dull here once it all soaks in thoroughly. But that's what we're looking for. Now this has been stuffed, and it's more pliable than this one that hasn't been touched. So right there, I mean, just getting that in there really softened up all of this. It's very supple at the top, whereas this is like cardboard. So big difference just getting the oil in there. You've got to do that. So I mean, it'll make it 2 years without it, but it's not good for it. It's really not good for it. I just wanted to see how long it would hold up. So there's that. Now here's our working man's boots. What I did here, I know I didn't show it, but basically if you go back and look at the video on how to do these shoes from brand new, I just repeated the process from putting on the shoe polish. So I put the brown shoe polish on real thick, rubbed it with my wooden rubber right there, rubbed everything down real hard, as long as I could stand to, and then put a coat of shoe grease on top of that. So that's what that should look like, not like this. This is dry. This has not had its proper maintenance. This is what it's supposed to look like. See how this is really fuzzy and this is not? That's what you want. That's the finish that these shoes should have, is that it should be rough but smooth. Now what happens is when that gets scratched, it just heals right back up. You can walk through the brambles, it's not going to affect it. Whereas with these boots, you know, you scratch that outer layer, you're going to have to put some polish in there and work it and buff that scratch out, whatever it takes. But these, you won't have that reaction because it's rough out. But it should not look like suede. So rub it, grease it, polish it. All right, now this is the most amazing thing of all. This is our first generation Sportsman boot that needed some attention. They weren't hurting me necessarily, but they just aren't very attractive because it was the first run and we were still learning things, and they're a good boot. They just could look prettier. This does not even look like the same boot, but it is. This is this boot. This is just the one side that's been dyed black and greased up. Now, again, it's still got some shiny because the grease hasn't thoroughly soaked in yet. I really put a liberal coating on here to get it good and soaked up. So the shiny will go away and they'll just be a dull black, kind of like what you see right here, which is perfect for a hunting boot. That'd be a great hunting boot. So I'm really excited about these. I think this is going to be, if softening doesn't resolve my issue, which I think it will, it's obvious that it'll resolve the issue. But if I need another pair, this is definitely my other go-to because these are good-looking boots now. I'm really thrilled with how this turned out. I can't believe this is the same boot. So that's how you do it. Now I have my work cut out for me because I've got to do the same thing with each one of these other boots. But well, I got out and I did my test. I've walked around a little bit here in the woods. It's beautiful, unpredictable southern Indiana weather. We had thunderstorms last night and snow this morning. So the boots are doing really well. I think we've more or less solved the problem. They're still a little bit stiff, so I'm probably going to put another coat. When I go in, I'm going to clean them up real good, dry them out, and put another coat of shoe grease on there, and I think that'll solve what little stiffness there still is. I also played around some with different lacing techniques, and I want to correct what I said earlier about having the ankle tight and the top loose. I actually found the best results is with everything as tight as possible. So I've got the ankle tight, there's a little flex in the ankle, just a little bit, and then I've got the top as tight as I possibly can. It's cranked down all the way, and that's actually keeping that back section straight. Now the only terrain that I've had trouble with these boots on is what we're on right now. So with snow, they tend to, the porous soles, they're not slick. In fact, on the other hand, the snow sticks really bad to the bottom of the soles. So that's the only terrain that I've ever had that kind of issue or any sort of issue with. Really dry leaves can be kind of slick sometimes because there's no traction on the sole. But all other terrains, mud, grass, whatever, works just fine. Snow, you're not going to slip, but everything kind of sticks to the bottom. So every so often, when you're in a wet snow like this, you've got to kind of kick that off a little bit. But it's really not that bad. So overall, definitely pleased with the performance. Now while I'm at it, I want to show you guys a sneak peek of something that's coming. I'm wearing the prototype for our new late teens through 1920s shotgun vest. This is a period vest. It's copied right off an original. Canvas loops, holds 12 gauge shells. We may eventually do a 16 gauge as well, but I actually found that the 16 gauge shells will stay in these loops anyway. So you probably can use it for 16 and 12. The 12 fits a little tight, but they will go in, which is good because they won't fall out. and most likely that canvas will stretch a little bit over time and make the 12 gauge shells easier to get in and out. But as it is right now, they're not too bad. They come right out. So this is coming. Like I said, this is the prototype, and this will be available on logsdonandco.com hopefully within a month or two. So really excited about these. Can't wait to see these come out. And then of course I'm also wearing my Logsdon & Co. wool shirt out here today, and this is the heavy wool shirt. It's doing a great job. It's about 28 degrees right now, or a little lower maybe, and I'm plenty warm, especially when I'm out moving. And I've got a cardigan that my wife made off of a 1916 pattern, and it's doing extra duty on top of that. So very comfortable. This is a great outfit for winter woods hiking and exploring. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please give us a like and subscribe. We'd love you to share the video. We'd like to see your comments, so keep in touch. We'll see you down the road.